Today is Bitcoin's birthday. We are on the eve of a spot Bitcoin ETF with the $4,000 red candle. You have been warned this video may trigger. It's actually certainly going to trigger certain people. Joining us today is Svetski, an incredibly staunch Bitcoin maxi, founder of Satoshi AI, the Amber app, the Bitcoin Times, a prolific author, and soon to be bestseller with the Bushido of Bitcoin. Before I bring up Svetski, obviously, what an absolute legend. Jim Cramer, he comes out. You can't kill Bitcoin that's here to stay. And we do see a big wick down. Before we jump into the price and before we bring up Svetski, we are at block height 824,210 local time. Svetski loving his beautiful wife there. Local time 7:43 a.m. Exchange rate 42,914. Sats per USD 2,330. We can see the last block reward 6.9227. The first 69 of the day. Fees 0.6727 made up nearly 10%. The second 69 of the day is the last difficulty adjustment went up by 6.98% on December 23. Like clockwork, 9 minutes 58 seconds out of a target of 10 minutes. And blocks to go to the next halving, 15,790. A low, 41,804. A high of 45,468 in the last 24 hours. What I'm going to do is bring up this extraordinary gentleman here. And let me just flip back to a better camera there, Svetski, if we can get this computer to work. How are you, mate?
What's up, buddy? Good to see you. That's a beautiful dashboard. I've never seen it before.
Yeah, I'm running through OBS into StreamYard. StreamYard's not always that great. Mate, I want to hit you with some of everything you write. You stir up a lot of people. I think you do it on purpose, or you absolutely don't. I'm going a whole week without swearing, so you just don't care what other people think. I've got better words to say, but most people think that Bitcoin's greatest contribution will be to lift the masses up and to help the weak. While that will likely occur, and not for the reasons you think, it will, in my unpopular belief, that the more important contribution and impact to mankind will be that Bitcoin makes the strongest stronger, the best better, and the most powerful more powerful. So do you not care about the average person? And what do you mean by that statement there? Is Bitcoin not for everyone?
Oof, straight for the jugular, I see. All right, let's play. So I use my words specifically when I write essays, and specifically to elicit a response. Anything, I've got a little saying these days, it's like anything but apathy, right? Like I want you to feel something. Words are there to move you in some capacity. So I said I didn't say the strong stronger. I even said the strongest stronger, right? Or the most powerful, more powerful. And the best way to understand this is by way of analogy. And the analogy is, if you put two people in a ring in a fight, you expect the stronger person, or the more skilled, the more prepared, the faster, whatever your dimension of like strength or powerful is, you expect that person to win, right? So what I'm talking about there is a merit-based outcome. Like in a game of football, of anything, in business, whatever, the strongest wins, right? And the strongest gets stronger in a structured, fair game. So what I'm more talking about is not the process of just trampling on people, because a strong person doesn't just like punch down, right? Like a truly strong person, like to get stronger, what do? You need to push against something that is like, Tony Robbins says this all the time. If you want to get better at tennis, you don't play someone worse than you. You go and play someone at least at your level or beyond, right? Yeah. And that'll force you to become better. So the premise, and what I'm trying to explain in this essay is that Bitcoin is a framework for excellence. It's not about trying to make the weak, better and all this sort of stuff. Like, by definition, someone who is, weak, lazy, whatever the, poor, whatever the case is, that is generally a function of their behavior. And on a Bitcoin standard, poor behavior is actually going to be penalized even more than it is today, right?
Yeah.
Good behavior, uh, behavior that builds wealth, that produces health, that creates leadership, all this sort of stuff is going to be rewarded more. So the best will get better, right? The strongest will get stronger, and it's going to it's going to orient civilization towards excellence and away from average. And really, you don't have a choice. Like if you pick one direction, that's the direction you're going to go in. And I've said this on a previous podcast in the last couple of weeks. Average is the first step toward death and decay and decline. And you can't just have, can we just have a little bit of average with excellence? Can't we just have a bit of both? It just doesn't work that way. Like the orientations, the direction you're facing is in two different, like they're two different directions. You can't get one without sacrificing the other. So you need to point yourself. You need to choose which way you want to orient yourself as an individual, and then society thereafter. And then the average and all that sort of stuff will end up taking care of itself anyway. Like the beautiful thing about orienting for excellence is that you can't, like by definition, average will always exist mathematically. There's always going to be an average.
Yeah.
But if you orient towards average, you eliminate excellent, and then that's fucking bad for everybody. So this is what people just have to get through their fucking heads. You have to pick an orientation, and sometimes the cost for that orientation towards excellence is that, hey, unfortunately some people are going to get left behind. But the cost of orienting towards average is that the whole world goes downhill.
Yeah. So what? Sorry to cut in. What about this movement that's happening where everybody gets a reward, everybody gets universal basic income, things like that? Like we're trying to be fair for everyone. It sounds like you totally disagree with that. Full stop.
Yeah, we're not being fair to everyone. We're being equal. This is the problem. Like fair would be, if you work, you get paid. If you don't work, you don't get paid, right? Equal is trying to say that, okay, well, it doesn't matter if you work or not, you're still going to get paid.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. Like equality is the disease. Fairness is fantastic. Like fairness is what you want. Fairness is what creates a robust game. Fairness is what makes the strongest stronger, right? Equality is what makes the strong weak and the weak weaker. And it just fucks everything up. So it's really, 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 really dumb. And that's the paradigm we live in. And that's the basis of my essay, was like calling upon some of the sort of the Nietzschean ideals. And he called this 150 years ago when nobody could have imagined that Europe and the West would kind of be in a decline. Like he called it, and he said, look, the cancer that is seeping into the West is this equalitarian democratic ideal, like this cancer of average. And it's taken 100 years to really seep in, but now we're feeling the effects of it.
Yeah. And in regards to what people see as the current elites, you actually say these people are too weak to actually build something, so they lie and cheat and steal from others. They are the most dangerous kind. The weak who have access to power by fiat. Those with unearned authority. Ayn Rand called them the moochers and the looters. None of these people are strong. None of these people are elite. None of them are the best. So what's your definition of elite, and how has this been distorted through fiat currency, I guess, and how's Bitcoin as energy money fix this? I know that's a lot.
Yeah, okay. So let's start with elite. So the word fundamentally is related to the word excellence. And excellence, by definition, etymologically speaking, is to separate oneself from the average. So like the word comes from exceller, which is to do with mountains and to do with heights, right? And that is what elite means. Elite means, the cream of the crop, the separation, the 1%, the 2%. Like elite is actually a good thing. Usain Bolt is fucking elite. He is the fastest runner in the world, and he's fundamentally elite. Elon Musk is an elite. Steve Jobs is elite. Like to be elite is something to aspire towards, right?
Yeah.
Michael Saylor is a fucking elite, right? You want to be elite in some dimension. The beauty of the world and the beauty of like the complexity that we live in is that there's many, 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 many dimensions, and you can truly be like, we sort of live in the age of a niche of one, right? Like you can truly take what's unique about you and become elite, become the best in those sorts of dimensions. And that's what you want to reward, right?
Yeah.
So what's happened is we've kind of given up these words. We've like, in a sense, like handed them over to the scumbags. Like there is nothing elite. There's nothing elite about being a parasite. I mean, other than the fact that you can be a part of the 1 or 2% by being a scumbag, right?
Yeah.
And that's essentially what these modern politicians and central bankers and everything have done. Like, they are not elite by virtue of being great people who are noble in their bearing and who have, you know, aristocratic characteristics or attributes or personalities. They are elite because they're close enough to the monetary spigot. And that's a bad reason to be elite. That's a bad reason to create separation. And, you know, what we are doing, unfortunately, is like we've created this like aversion to words like aristocrat, elite, noble, which is they're the things that we should be aspiring towards becoming, right? And in doing so, we've left a vacuum for the scumbags to pretend they're elite. And, you know, as we all know, like the fiat monetary system creates a incentive, it creates a framework where you don't actually have to be elite in any meaningful dimension. All you have to do is co-opt the money printer, and once you co-opt the money printer, who gives a fuck, right? Then you can do whatever the hell you want, and that's a problem. That's why we don't have real elites anymore. We have what I would call parasitic elites, and I think, you know, I mean, I don't think I even need to explain why I think Bitcoin fixes this. I think people listening to the show probably get that.
Most people do, but with these the parasitic class, because they are so close to the money printer, can they just not print the fiat dollars and then buy up all the Bitcoin, and then they are the ones that are going to continue to stay in power? How does Bitcoin prevent that from happening?
Yeah, I mean, Bitcoin doesn't prevent that from happening, other than the fact that Bitcoin, you know, is 80-90%, whatever we are. I think we're at 90% issued already. So like, you know, they could go and print a bunch of money and they're going to be scrambling for the final chunks of it, right? So, you know, does that mean some of them will get power? Sure. But what you just have to do is just extend your time scale, right? Like, you know, sure, maybe some of them right now who are close to the money printer, who are, you know, 50, 60, 70, 80 years old, they'll buy up a bunch of Bitcoin. But, you know, they got, what, 10, 20, 30 years left of this world? They're going to die. Who are they going to pass it on to? Like, the fact that Bitcoin's a bearer instrument is really, 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 really tricky to deal with. Like, all of the mechanisms through which we've held assets, particularly over the last couple hundred years, and particularly the last 100 years, like, you know, through trust structures and stuff like that, it's a different paradigm to how Bitcoin is held. So like, you know, if you're a parasitic elite today, and, you know, fundamentally speaking, you probably don't have, you know, good lineage, you know, like your kids are probably some fucking wacko you know, like climate catastrophists or whatever, right? Yeah. And, you know, you're going to pass your Bitcoin onto them, you know, they'll probably squander it on, you know, climate activism, hookers and coke or whatever, and then, you know, the Bitcoin's squandered and it goes like back into the economy. So it's like, I guess the it's almost got like a, I don't know, like a shortened feedback mechanism. You know, at some point, either in the current generation or subsequent generations, poor behavior will have a cost, right? Like, economic consequence is going to localize to such a degree that, you know, bad behavior at some point is going to just get washed out. And that's where sort of my hope at least comes from. But, you know, to your original point, that doesn't stop people from printing money today and getting it. I mean, you know, Michael Saylor understands this. That's why he keeps getting loans from, you know, that are basically derived from money printing, right? And he's just stacking all this as he can. Good on him.
Yeah, absolutely. With just obviously Michael Saylor's starting to sell MicroStrategy at the moment. We all assume he's going to put in Yeah, so yesterday I think he's selling 200 or 500 shares a day. So over the next 4 months, if MicroStrategy please fact check me in the comments, ladies and gentlemen, but I think it works out to be about $200 million that he's going to sell worth of his stock, and we all assume he's going to be buying Bitcoin there. What are your thoughts on like leverage plays in regards to Bitcoin? Should people just be holding Bitcoin? Should some people diversify into the ETF? Should they go into miners? How do you think about holding on to the world's hardest asset?
Yeah, man, it's tricky because like the problem is that, I mean, everyone's different, right? Like, I prefer to hold Bitcoin. I don't prefer to diversify in, other things. I mean, does it make sense to, buy some MicroStrategy and maybe some miners and stuff like that? Could you get a better return? Possibly. I mean, I don't know. Like this is probably outside of my purview. I mean, I don't think the ETF is a great thing to hold. Why would you? Like Bitcoin's easy enough to hold, but
Yeah.
Everyone's different. Some people have a bunch of their wealth tied up in these stupid retirement funds, and maybe the only way they can get access to Bitcoin, at least monetarily speaking, is through the ETF. So by all means, whatever, like at the end of the day, it's increasing Bitcoin's economic weight. But, as we all know, like paper's paper, bare asset's bare asset, right? Like it's 101. Pick your, just know that, these conveniences just don't come for free. Like that's the whole point.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. I want to change things up, mate. I've been holding on to this for like the last 3 months. This is an amazing package that I've been itching to open up. And I've even got, let me see if I can bring it up here. It's not switching over. Camera must have died. But I do have a whole shelf I made specifically to be able to put these here. This is the Bitcoin Times. I've not looked at them. It's man, I've been waiting for so long. So you've created these things. Let me just go full screen and I'll just show the audience what they are perfectly. So I've got number 2, 3, and 4. And I believe you've come out with number 5 as well, which is the Energy Edition, which I want to dive into. Finally, I can open them up and have a look and read through. But you've got some of the greatest minds within Bitcoin. That's probably my favorite cover out of all of them. Absolutely amazing. All of them in New Hope. So I've put a link below for that. But more importantly, you've come out with Energy Times. What are these all about? What's in there? Who has contributed? Is it all you, or have you got the best and brightest minds to be able to write articles in there?
Yeah, thanks for the softball. I mean, look, the point of this all started as me having too much to say at a stupid blockchain conference, and that was the edition 1, which is being redesigned and will be relaunched this year, etc. But the edition 2 onwards was basically me going out and collecting the best thinkers on the planet with respect to Bitcoin and getting them to write an essay about Bitcoin around a particular theme, right? And really the first proper theme was honestly edition 5, the Austrian edition, which was, not last year now because we're in 2024, but the year before, right? And that was Seyfedin, Goldstein, Pierre Rochard, who else was in there? Raheem Tagizadagan, Conrad Graf, Parker Lewis, and myself, right? So it's by invitation only. It's 6 writers. It's once a year. There's 21 editions that are going to be produced over 21 years. This year is going to be edition 7. So we're, getting to a third of the way. And they're available free as essays online. But I print 2,100 of each edition as a collectible, which is precisely what you've got in your hands that you're showing people before. So that's the whole point of this thing. It's basically I want to make it the #1 Bitcoin publication on planet, at least #1 in terms of quality. That's the angle.
Yeah, and they are beautifully printed in the artwork and stuff. Let me go full screen, ladies and gentlemen. These are something I've been waiting to. Well, I've had my hands on them for a long time, but to be able to open and go through, they will be a collector's item. And one thing that I'd like to point out, I got 0296, so we've got 69 in there backwards. or at least we got the numbers 96. But you can reserve a certain number, so I'll always get 0 to 96. And I believe at the start of the year, you price them in Satoshis. And ladies and gentlemen, this is a shill because this is an amazing man that's created some amazing content. He's provided all for free. You can go online and read it. I've read most of the articles there, but I wanted to save some to actually read these physical things. But how do people go about getting them, and how do they reserve like a specific number and things like that? I thought that was pretty cool. And how do you go about the pricing structure, because you set it at the start of the year?
That's yeah. So basically people can, I mean, it's a Bitcoin only shop. So there's no Stripe integration, none of that. It's all BTC Pay server. You go to bitcointimes.io/shop, and you just check out in sats. When I release them, the price is about $80, and I fix it in sats. So if the price of Bitcoin goes up, well, happy days. They're worth more. If the price of Bitcoin goes down, well, they're cheaper. So for a bit there in 2023, I was sweating. I was like, God damn it, they're down to $40.
Yeah.
So, that was fun. But now all of a sudden they're too goddamn expensive. So I think they're exchange rate wise, $150, $160 for some of them. So I might reevaluate that in the future, because if Bitcoin does keep pumping, I mean, each one of these things is going to be worth like $500 or $1,000. It's going to get quite expensive. So we'll see. But there is a limited number of them. There's 2,100. So maybe I'm not going to need to do that. So we'll see what pans out.
No, absolutely awesome. Ages ago, when we first started talking, I asked for a discount code, which is GDAY. So that's down there. Maybe that's 20,000 sats or 10,000 sats or something off.
Let's do this. Give them a code. Give them a code energy. That'll give them 40,000 sats off. Yeah, and I'll track that sucker for you. Okay. Sweet,
easy as. Now, can you share your screen? I'd love to dive into Satoshi or Spirit of Satoshi.ai. Is that possible for you to share your screen?
Maybe.
Down the bottom, there'll be a button that says present.
Okay, let me see.
And while Svetski is doing that, just a shout out to everyone in the chat. We do have 118 viewers live. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button and humble the like button.
I don't think I can. My privacy settings on Chrome are too damn strong.
Yeah, I got a dedicated PC for streaming. Otherwise, you can't do anything. I will bring up this window here, and you're going to have to walk me through it, Svetski. Right. So this is Spirit of Satoshi.ai. First thing, what is it, and why did you create it? And is AI not going to take over the world as it is? Do we need another AI machine, an evil robot out there?
Yeah, let's start backwards. So AI is not taking over the world. AI is honestly just computers, and there's nothing fancy about it. There's nothing intelligent about it. There's nothing sentient about it. There's nothing, no one's going to take over anything. There's nothing different, honestly, about language models than there is about the fact that we've been using AI in Uber and Airbnb this entire time. It's literally the same thing. Just all we've done is we've applied the law of large numbers to language. That's it. Instead of just matching drivers and riders. So there's nothing overtly special happening here. It just feels special because for the first time in history, you can type some words into a computer and the computer can actually string a sentence back to you. And people are like, oh my God, it's alive. It's going to kill us all. It's really not. So, don't freak out. The reason we set out to build Spirit of Satoshi specifically was that these language models are effectively a reflection. They're a mirror of the corpus of data that they're trained on. So all the language models out there, they're trained on very similar data sets. And, a lot of the data set is basically Wikipedia. So, if you go and ask Wikipedia what the hell Bitcoin is, it'll tell you some shit about crypto, blockchain, blah, 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 right? So if you take mainstream information, you are going to get a mainstream response from these models. So Bitcoin is not mainstream. Neither is Austrian economics. You're not going to find a CNN article or, basic stuff like that talks about inflation is bad, we need to sound money, and we need to fix supply money and all that sort of stuff. It's just not going to exist. So we set out, and it's honestly more of an experiment than a product, is like, could we create a language model that represented a different paradigm? And that paradigm being a Bitcoiner paradigm. Now, it's still a work in progress. It doesn't respond all that great. It's doing okay, blah, blah, blah. But it's something that we want to build as a utility for the Bitcoin space that anybody anywhere in the world can use. And we just want to make it accessible. Honestly, like, we've actually got a Satoshi GPT, which is on OpenAI. It's not our own model, but it's a model that we've tweaked. We've plugged it into mempool.space, BTC Maps. We've plugged it into Bitcoin News. We've got a partner, New Hedge, which gives us like mining data and all this sort of cool shit. So you can basically query Satoshi GPT about anything. And because ChatGPT's model is extremely powerful underneath it, it actually does stuff that our own model can't do yet. Like, it's going to take us ages to get our own model there. Our model is kind of really good at just any question you ask it, it just relates it back to Bitcoin, which is cool and sometimes fucking annoying. Just ask it anything, it's like, yeah, well, you know what? And Bitcoin does this. It's like, I didn't ask that. So that's one thing. The other thing we're doing is we're playing with Code Satoshi. So we want to build a code assistant that helps with Bitcoin and Bitcoin-related languages and protocols, so that way more engineers can build Bitcoin products. So that's another thing. So there's a bunch of things there. But yeah, it's fundamentally like it's an R&D project more than anything else. And it's an attempt to see if we can, bring something that is, paradigmatically more Bitcoin-like into the world, that is powered by some of these sort of new AI tools.
Yeah, and how are you specifically going about training this AI model? Like, are you feeding it all Safe Dean's books and stuff and getting people to fact check the answers? Is that how it works?
Pretty much. You gotta like, it's not as simple as taking a book and feeding it to a model. What you have to do is you need to take the book, you need to break it up into a bunch of chunks. You then need to take the chunks, you need to turn it. Like, if you want the model to be good at questions and answers, you have to give it examples of questions and answers. So you can't just take a paragraph of Safe Dean's work and put it in. You have to take his paragraph, you have to transform it a little bit to make it a question and an answer, and then you need to feed it into the model. So there's like a bunch of steps that go into it, and this is where it gets a bit complicated. So what we did was we built like a little incentivization system. We call it Lex LLM. So Lightning-enabled, crowdsourced LLM training. So the idea is that you go in, you create an account, Nostr, whatever, Lightning. You can log in quickly so you can stay anon. And there's a consensus mechanism which looks at, which people are annotating the data in the same way and which people are not. And annotation basically refers to, are you keeping clean data? Are you discarding dirty data? Are you creating new data that is, that other people keep? Meaning that, if they're in consensus, or are they other people discarding it? So then you earn points, and those points are essentially sats. So the idea is that you can take, if you've got some Bitcoin knowledge, instead of just, yelling at people on Twitter, you can come and earn some sats. That's the premise of this thing. And in the process, your contributions go towards making a better data set to train the model on. That's essentially the plan.
Awesome. I've put your Twitter as well as your link tree at the top of the description there. So if anyone wants to get in contact with Svetski or to jump onto the spirit of Satoshi.ai and the Satoshi ChatGPT, you can jump there and find that. What do you think do you even care about the BlackRock ETF and what's happening? Do you think about what it's going to do to the price, or just one Bitcoin's one Bitcoin and that's as far as you think?
Dude, I have zero idea what's happening there. Couldn't care less. And it's not even the one Bitcoin is one Bitcoin. I'm just so busy doing other things that I barely even look at any of this garbage anymore. Like, whatever. I'm sure there'll be an ETF at some stage. Whether it's now or later, who really gives a fuck?
Yep. One question about it, because you are a deep thinker and maybe you haven't thought about it, but do you reckon they'll use the ETF and then bring in something like Executive Order 6102 and take Bitcoin away from people and try to be able to shut it down? Is that a potential attack vector?
I mean, possibly, sort of. The challenge though is like, how much of the total Bitcoin supply is the ETF going to hold?
Yeah.
Like 10%? Is that enough to do anything really to Bitcoin? Probably not. So I don't know, like, if that matters as much. I mean, sure, there's risks. I just don't know if it's my place to comment and deal with those risks. I think there's a good general consensus that people should be wary of the ETF, and that instead of holding, exposure to Bitcoin through an ETF, they should do it through self-custody. And I think Bitcoiners have developed this really good self-custody messaging. And as wallets get better, as self-custody gets better, as education, as more and more podcasts like the work that you're doing and all this sort of stuff, as that message spreads, more people will go towards self-custody. So I mean, if these guys want to do a 6102, they better do it quick, because I think the challenge is that they're running out of time.
Yeah.
And the time's sort of on our side.
No, absolutely awesome. Again, I want to flick gears. You're obviously a prolific author. Everyone can find everything up to date, but you've got something that I've been waiting for ages, which is the Bushido of Bitcoin. It's probably going to be a #1 bestseller straight away. What is this about? How does it relate to Bitcoin? And what's the messaging behind the book without giving the book away too much?
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to ask a different question. So I'm kind of sick and tired of, I shouldn't say sick and tired, but it's like, there's a million books out there on how Bitcoin works, why Bitcoin's going to win, why it's better, beginners books, advanced books, technical books, economic books, everything, right? Like it's all taken care of. I don't actually think we need another book on the history of money, or, how Bitcoin evolved and or why it's going to win, all that. I think it's done. I wanted to write a book on, okay, well, if Bitcoin's going to win, civilizationally, culturally speaking, what happens? Like, do we become just a bunch of, political parasites, kind of like what we were talking about earlier? Like, because, well, people, this is really important. Like, money does change people, like, and coming into wealth very, very quickly, like going from being poor to middle class very quickly has an effect on people. Going from middle class to being rich has an effect on people. Going from rich to being mega rich has an effect on people. So you really need to work on your character beforehand. And this is a book about character, principle, and virtues. So it's called the Bushido of Bitcoin. The word Bushido it's a Japanese word. And essentially what it means is like way of the warrior, or a moral code for the warrior, right? Like, so it is like the closest Western equivalent we have is chivalry, right? It's like a code of virtue or a moral code, like a way of behavior. And what I do for the book is I go back through history and I look at what are the cultures, ancient, feudal, medieval, like what are the great cultures that preceded the greatest civilizations on earth, and what are the principles or the virtues that shaped those cultures. And I go and extract, and it's funny, like across, whether it's the Greek, the Roman, the Macedonian, the Japanese, the sort of the Germanic West, like all of these, you find that the principles, as you pull them out, they're all very similar. So I kind of distill a set of 10 virtues, which I call the Bushido of Bitcoin. So it's like 10 virtues for a Bitcoin standard, because my argument is that, the current paradigm and the Bitcoin standard paradigm, they're incompatible. They work differently. The way of behavior will be fundamentally different. Like the playbook for the current paradigm, the way we live today is, get as close as you can to the monetary spigot, lie, cheat, steal, whatever you need to do to get up into central banking, politics, tech, whatever the hell you need to do, Wall Street, whatever. Like that's how you get ahead. But I believe on a Bitcoin standard, there'll be a different set of virtues. And what that playbook is essentially the topic of this book. I try and really look at what are those 10 virtues, what's important to develop. And yeah, it's honestly, I not to blow smoke up my own ass, but I think it'll be the most important Bitcoin culture book ever written, and hopefully the most important Bitcoin book over the next couple of years, because it touches on, what's just more important. It's like, okay, all right, Bitcoin's going to win. What then? Like, because that's the whole point here. It's not about Bitcoin. It's about humanity and what humanity does on a Bitcoin standard. Like, who gives a fuck about Bitcoin? Like, we'll know that Bitcoin's won when nobody talks about Bitcoin anymore. Like, you, me, all of us clowns who are sitting here talking about Bitcoin, we should be dinosaurs by the next generation if we are to succeed. You don't have people doing podcasts about how cool the internet is anymore, right? Like, the internet already won, right? Like, Bitcoin, when it wins, it's gone, and it recedes into the background like air.
Obviously, you think very deeply on the way that people are, I guess, this slave mindset, the parasitic class, the weak people, everyone winning the prize and stuff. This is not just something that has come up overnight. What drives you to want people to do better, to be the best, to make the strongest stronger? Where's that drive coming from, Svetski?
I don't know, man. I think I was always like that from when I was young. I always tried to do more. Like, I remember when we would do even things like PE at school, right? Like, the teacher would make you do 10 push-ups. I would do 11 or 12, right?
Yeah.
Like, we would, doing math, instead of using a calculator, I would like force myself to figure it out in my head. Like, I would do the times tables, I would do the math, I would do everything I can, decimals, fractions, all of it, like in my head, and I would, do it like this. I would push myself to be better. And so, maybe obviously some things, some my parents must have had some sort of impact. My dad was a very tough sort of like taskmaster in that sense. But, I think fundamentally, the older I've gotten, the more I believe that there's something, we have genetic predispositions, that some of us, there's a nature component, and I don't know why I got that, but I got that. And then why I want other people is, more because I just think there's two. There's the functional reason, which is the more people that strive toward excellence, the more excellent the world becomes. Number one. And number two, it's just the pleasure being around people who want bigger and better things in life, who want to be better versions of themselves. It's better to be around people like that than it is to be around fucking slobs. And, I'm sorry, but like, I don't want to be around junkies or drug addicts or slobs or fat people or, people that don't take care of themselves, people that have no ambition, that don't want to do anything, that are like Netflix and bug eaters and all that sort of stuff. Like, I just don't want to. And, like, sure, I'm using a lot of generalizations here.
Yeah.
But like, you do just meet a lot of people, like, their greatest ambition in life is to wait for the weekend so they can just get drunk.
Yeah.
Like, okay, congratulations. Like, you are not the person I want to be around. And, if I can use my platform to kind of present or spread this message, then, at the very least, selfishly speaking, I might find other people that I can connect with on that level. And, altruistically speaking, maybe it'll knock a few people awake to start doing that with their own lives and maybe inspire others around them to do the same. So that's sort of my reasoning, I would say.
No, that's well thought out. Say somebody that is like average or mediocre, what can they start to do to be able to change from where they are now to where potentially, like you're saying, like, people live for the weekend to be able to get drunk, so they're walking around in a state of sleep or slothfulness, and then they just check out for the whole weekend anyway. What can people do to start moving to a higher vibration? You talk about energy a lot. Obviously, everything is everything. Everything is energy. How can people increase their energy, their vibration, become a better person, move away from mediocrity?
Honestly, there's no easy answer. It's like, you need to push yourself to do that which, like, makes you uncomfortable. Simple. Like, if like, you need to find a reason, a why, right? Like, so these are not problems of how, these are problems of why, fundamentally speaking. Like, it's a motivational problem, which is psychological. Like, you need to have a reason to want to do better. And if you don't have a reason to want to do better, like, it doesn't matter the amount of strategies or the amount of like how-tos, you're just not going to do it, right? Like, most people, like, for example, most people know how to lose weight, right? Eat less, move more.
Yeah.
But, the library and Amazon is like full of health books on how to, like, eat less, move more. The problem is not strategy. The problem is psychology, right? And my suggestion to these kind of people is like, don't look for the answer in a book. Don't look for the answer in a how-to. Look for a why. Look for a reason to have ambition, a reason to do something greater, a reason to become fit, great, and all this sort of stuff. And I mean, if that reason even is something like, I don't know, like, I mean, it can vary to, I want to live longer. I want to, have more energy when I wake up. I want to, be better for my husband or wife. I want to have children. I want to live longer for my children. It could be something like that. Or it could be, people might find this one offensive, but it could be like, I just want to be good looking, or I want to attract a hot chick, that might sound more surface level, but it's actually still better than having apathy, right? Or not having that reason. So like, whatever it is, design the reason and then use that to sort of drive you. So that would be my 2 cents.
No, awesome. I think one saying that sort of sums that up perfectly is, if you do what is hard, your life will be easy. If you do what is easy, your life will be hard. And yeah, whatever reason people can find. Alex, Svetski, what else is going on in your world? What have we not covered? What type of things would you like to share with the audience there?
This is good, man. I think this is a good, short, sharp sort of overview of all the things that are going on. Like, Bushido is going to be a late Q1, early Q2 project. I think it'll probably be because I'll be in most likely be in Madeira in March. So when I get back in March, like the first couple of weeks are going to be, hustling, because I've got another little project that I'm working on the side, which is Nostr and community related, which I think is going to be really cool. So there'll be some more announcements on that in March, but I think that'll hit in March. And then most likely April, I will officially announce Bushido, and I'll do a crowdfund, and I'll do like some special editions on there, signed copies, paperback, all this sort of different stuff like we did with Uncommunist. So that's going to be really sick. So that's sort of timeline for that. Bitcoin Times, we haven't started shipping edition 6 yet. I'm still waiting for the design. The designer's sort of been busy with his own stuff, but that'll be going out in January, end of January, most likely. And then we'll have edition 1 and 2, which are the 2 that never got redesigned and printed. They will be a Q1, Q2 project as well of this year, most likely Q2. And there'll also be Amazon editions. So people who can't afford the collectible, because they are a little bit pricey, they'll be able to buy the Amazon editions. They'll be $10, $15 each. Nice and easy. So that way people can get some of that beautiful content that way. Obviously, more to come with Spirit of Satoshi. And who knows? I may, depending on time, get back into the podcasting circuit. We will see.
Yeah, awesome. One thing that you brought up there as well, which we didn't bring up, is you co-authored a book, The Uncommunist Manifesto, with Mark Moss. Great read, absolutely incredible. So I'd recommend everyone read that book as well. Svetski, as always, it's a pleasure. It's been too long since the last time we chatted, and I look forward to having you back on.
Thank you, my friend. I'm looking forward to it as well. Let's do like a March, April rip. It'll be good.
Yeah, as soon as the book's ready to go. And obviously, it looks like it's going to time pretty well with the halving, hey?
Exactly.
Perfect. Everyone, have a beautiful day. Be blessed. Peace.